Stephen, let's talk about this, all right? One of the things that I see with clients is the frustration of continuity, direction, priority, method, if you will. And there are words in our industry like Agile,
Yep.
like Scrum, like Waterfall. Now, help us understand, why are those methods, practices, technologies important?
So every one of them can really benefit different organizations. I've seen where hardware is really involved in your development process. Mm-hmm. And that sort of gets stuck in that waterfall because you need to make sure they're done before you can start developing the software. So there's certain avenues that are really important. There's certain methodologies that are important. So I don't think that you should really just say, oh, we always do Scrum and we're going to do Scrum forever, right? Or I'm going to do Agile or Waterfall. Yeah. Each project needs to be identified before you really figure out what is the best solution for you or methodology.
That's interesting. So bolt-on solutions like Agile methodologies versus Waterfall methodologies, and I think what we're referring to as project administration and management, are not necessarily interchangeable. They can be adopted, but there are better solutions for better reasons, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yep, exactly.
So one of the real challenges that we're experiencing right now is this great resignation, right? This moment in time where people are just leaving their environment. Mm-hmm. We're seeing that within CRNT, and we're faced directly with the challenges associated with those, with the clients we're dealing with. Tell me, what kind of experiences have you had where you've been able to meet the needs in those environments, and what are some concerns or at least points that you've seen that you'd like to share?
So one of the things when you do lose a resource is you lose all of that knowledge that they had. And so that's the hardest thing that you always got to try to do is how do we make sure our knowledge will continue on to the next one? Because there is going to be changes in this industry. Developers, we often might get stuck in a technology for so long that we're trying to look for the next place. And so if you don't give a developer an opportunity, they might go and look somewhere else where they don't learn to grow. There is such a competitive atmosphere out there. And what I often look at as a developer is it's sort of like, I look at it as a wave, right? Mm. And a developer is either getting pushed by the wave of technology and how it's evolving, or they fall behind.
Right.
And so because they fall behind, they sort of look for other places. And so you've got to really either try to strengthen your current employees by helping them achieve their goals that are their goals of development goals.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times you're thinking, well, we want the development goals to line up with our own business goals.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to be able to do that when you don't really look at it as a developer role.
So when I hear you say that, there's a couple things that come to mind. One is you want to be cognizant of your employees' needs, right? Mm-hmm. And you want to allow a compromise of direction, especially around the technical format of programming, making sure that the foundational goals, expectations they may have are part of the direction you're asking them to move towards. Good advice, at least what I've seen is that you should also be keeping track of that data.
Yeah.
And creating an environment which acts as a silo or a repository. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't take the time to develop that basic archive, but it can be done. What are some formats that you might recommend that people capture data and information, especially around developmental environments?
So one of the things as you're developing those products, you need to make sure that it's clearly in that planning stage that you outlined it. And anything that's deviating in your plans, make sure you notate it in that process. So that's one place, is making sure your overall planning is in place. A lot of the times when you do plan, it falls short, right? You then, once you're starting to build it, you completely go off plan.
What are some good silos or applications that might record that? I'm just wondering, what do you see in the industry that's a good platform to keep track of all that?
So in the ticket system, when you're creating those issues,
right?
So Microsoft's got a great product that I really enjoy, which is their ADO application, where they actually are creating the tickets, and that's going to help you document what is happening.
Right.
The next thing that I think is really important after documenting that inside the ticketing system or in your user stories is starting to actually make sure your developers are at a higher level of documenting their code.
Okay.
And we call that documenting is by commenting and adding in that information, so that then when somebody has moved on from the company, they can jump into that code. I run into that problem all the time where a client will say, here's my code, read it, right? And so when I jump into that code and start reading it, it's really difficult at times. We want to be able to run it, we want to be able to do things, but actually documenting that code and making sure that it's good, that other people can be able to pick it up.
Right. That's excellent. So one of the things we're dealing with on a more progressive basis is the need to be able to administer and manage projects, and the utilities and tools that people prefer to use in that respect. What's your advice?
So coming up with the right ticketing system is really important. You need to make sure that they satisfy the need of your company. And so I have seen several ticketing systems like Jira or Atlassian. Those provide the needed information for you to be able to create the good ticketing system. The nice thing to be able to use one like Atlassian or the Microsoft or all those other, I guess, big packages is it provides also a repo, a development repo, to be able to store that data. It's really nice to be able to link your ticketing system with your data or code. Because as you're reading through documentation of the code, you can sort of see those online.
Continuity.
And it really lets your people see that as they're developing, you can actually sort of check and balance between your developers. When they say, oh, this is going to take so long, you can actually go and look and say, here's what the code that came into the place, and you can sort of say, well, did that really take that long? And you can start asking those important questions to your developer.
I like this. There's an art and there's a science, right, to directing a project. And without this as a utility, it's pretty hard to wrangle those kittens, right? Being able to look, and I've seen you do this a lot with our guys, where you'll use these resources, Jira and whatnot, Microsoft platforms, to see if they're keeping pace, making the points in their sessions, etc.
Yeah, that's exactly their velocity.
Velocity, that's right.
Yeah, and a lot of the times, it used to be that you would keep track of your developers by how many lines of code they wrote a day, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when you start getting into these big things of where programmers start giving a lot of white space. And so really trying to tie your code base to your ticketing system is really important so that you can do that velocity. And you can start checking on their work, but then you can also start keeping track of their velocity, right? Velocity is how many tickets they can complete in a period of a sprint. And you sort of keep track of that from sprint to sprint. And that gives you sort of a planning date, right? And that helps you and your business know we're going to be able to deliver on this date based on the velocity we've seen our developers go through in the course of the period of time. It also is a great check and balance for you as an organization to see how well your developers are doing.
Well, and by that token, of course, be able to shape them towards success. Right? If they're failing in one area, or if they don't quite get it and maybe they have a hard time speaking up, you're able to gently slide in resources or move them to projects where they're more efficient. Or components within the project that's more efficient. Thanks. Yeah.